Hi everyone. I hope you'll join me for kind of a fun drawing challenge this week. I've been kind of inspired by all of the bugs that I've been seeing coming out as the weather's getting a little bit warmer. So we're going to kind of use that as part of our subject matter and our inspiration for this drawing challenge. And I wonder if you've ever considered what the world must look like from the perspective of an insect, right? So here's this little bug on the ground looking up. Everything probably looks pretty enormous, right? And I know we probably have spent a little more time talking about a bird's eye perspective in the art room, you know, when you're above looking down at the ground, what things look like from above. But if you haven't ever considered what it might look like from the ground looking up, I just thought this could be really kind of a fun drawing that we could do. So I had some fun looking up some examples online, and I came up with an example of my own that I wanted to show you here. So you can see that I've drawn an example of a person here that looks kind of distorted. That's very intentional, because if you were the insect and you were down here on the ground looking up, everything would look a little bit distorted. The things that are down closest to your perspective around you are going to look really big, whereas the things that are further away are going to start to look a little bit smaller, which is why the head and the upper part of the person's body looks smaller than the legs and all of the flowers and the other insects that I included here. So it probably looks like there's a lot going on and it might be really complicated, but I want to assure you it's not, because I've got this guideline here that I already drew out. And I think if you do this first, you'll find that this actually is a lot easier than you might think. So the first thing that I did is I found the center point on my paper. I have it going vertically. So my halfway point, I put a mark here. And then I gave myself about 2 finger widths at each corner on the bottom. It's maybe an inch or so. But then once I put my marks there, I took my ruler and drew a couple straight lines. So it gave me this big upside down V. That's going to be the guideline for drawing the body of the person, okay? So I then folded my paper in half up here so that I could find the center point. That's what my marks are here, just so you'd be able to see a little bit better in the video. My center line is going to be for the waist, or like the bottom of the shirt. And then what I did here for this line, you can see I put another little line here. I folded down about 1/3. So you can see this upper half would be divided in about 3 parts. That's where I put my fold line, and I put another line here. This is going to be the guideline for drawing the shoulders. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, because I'm going to draw the figure first, and then we'll talk a little bit more about all the details that might be down below. My line right here that I drew on my fold is going to be where I'm going to just start drawing my sleeves. And if you imagine the diagonal lines here that we drew originally, those are going to be on the inside of where I draw the arms. I really recommend that you do this in pencil, because you're going to find that you probably need to make a few edits and go in and revise a little bit. I didn't draw my first example with Sharpie. I drew it in pencil and then I came back. So I've got my curved shoulders, my sleeves. I made sure that my arms looked like they were getting a little bit skinnier as I was coming down here. Don't let this guideline here think that that's going to be where you're going to stop and put the hands, because your hands rest a little bit lower than your waist. So I'm going to come down here, and I want you to think about, if your hand was resting sort of just along your side like this, sort of relaxed, you'd see a little bit of bend in the hand and the fingers and your thumb, but you don't really see all your other fingers. So that's one of the things that I want to try to do. As I've come down here with my wrist, I'm going to put a little angle here to look like my fingers are bent a little bit, so it kind of comes out and then back. What you may even want to do is put a little mark there about 2 inches down from your middle point, or 2 fingers down from your middle point. That's a pretty good target for where your fingers might stop. So I've got my little bend here on each side. I think it's helpful if you try and match them up as you're going, and that way you don't have to worry about one being way shorter than the other. I'm going to draw my index fingers as they're kind of pointed in here towards the legs, and then I'll come up and add a thumb. And remember, you're working in pencil, so you know it doesn't have to be right the first time. You can go back and make some adjustments as you go, okay? All right, so that's really as much as I need to do to get those arms looking really big and long next to the side. I'm going to come back here and put some kind of a collar on my shirt, add a short neck. I don't want it to look too long, and then add my oval shaped head. you know, from there you're going to decide what do you want to do for hair and the facial features and so forth. What kind of an expression might the person have? Don't forget to add the sides of your shirt there, so you'll have a little bit of space in between the arms and the shirt, okay? Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to use this space for the legs. That's why I wanted to make sure I didn't go all the way out to the corners, or it would have made the legs look really, really huge. We want them big, but we don't want them to look too distorted. All right, so I'm going to come in and I'll add a couple more lines here, and you can adjust accordingly. You might even want to make it look like the person is wearing shorts and draw their legs, but I thought it might just simplify it to add a couple of pant legs here. But I'm not going to really worry about adding the feet. If you want to have a fun challenge, though, you might want to check out the ends of your shoes, or even have somebody pose and look at, you know, like what a barefoot might look like. But on mine, I chose to just fill this with all these different blades of grass and the plants, and that way I didn't have to worry about drawing the shoes or any feet details. One of the things that we really want to look at, though, is how can we really make these things look so big? Because this is where the perspective of the bug is going to be looking at all the things that look enormous. So if you wanted to add any flowers, one of the things that I did is I wanted to really kind of add to that idea that I'm looking up from the ground. So I want to show the underside of the flower. So rather than drawing the front, I'll draw the back, and I'll put the stem so I can see where it's attached to the back, and then add the petals around it, okay? You might even want to go bigger than that, depending on how distorted you might want to make it look. But you do want to make sure that these look really oversized compared to, you know, the body, because this is what the insect would be looking up at. Now, you may not want to just fill yours with flowers. Can you imagine how cool it would look if you maybe added like a huge football or a baseball? Can you imagine how enormous that would look to an insect? Maybe even having some fun with a dog's tail or something. You wouldn't have to draw the whole dog. You could just have the tail be in the grass. So what I would recommend that you do then is kind of play around with making, you know, different blades of grass, some big, some small. Let them kind of go in different directions. This is why it's helpful to work in pencil, because then you can come back and you can erase the lines so it looks like there are some of your details that overlap, and it doesn't just look like tons and tons of lines that don't make sense. It's going to start giving some overlapping by letting some of the details be in front and behind. So I experimented with big blades, and then I just started filling in with some smaller blades. If you want to make it look like the tail is in the front, you know, you'd make those, erase some of those pencil lines so it looks like there's more grass behind. But I think you could have a lot of fun really experimenting with different ideas. Think about some of the things you might use outside, sporting equipment or games and things that you use. But I think you could really get creative with the things that you can draw down here to give that bird's eye or that bug's eye perspective by really enlarging the things on the lower half. And then as the details go up on the human, it really distorts it and really helps accentuate that perspective from down below. So thank you so much for the pictures I've been getting from your artwork. If you take advantage of doing this challenge, I'd love to see what this turns out like. So you can email it to me like I've gotten some of the others. Thanks so much. Keep them coming. Put your own spin on this. Have a lot of fun. But that's what's most important. So get creative and really enjoy, okay? Good luck.